We've been talking about promoting creative interdisciplinarity, and we started with a framework for thinking about the move from the Cold War to a creative era. And we continued by talking about the human dimension of promoting creative interdisciplinarity, moving from understanding the tyranny of disciplines, moving through language, pair work, and into the need for meso-level support of networks. Now we want to talk about some of the lessons from and for the IT landscape. Now, we're still going to assert that human networks trump electronic networks, but IT clearly has an important role to play. And some of the inobvious lessons that we want to draw are listed there, and we're going to follow each of them in turn. So you probably think that you're fairly modern, maybe even postmodern, that you use email, you're in the know, but you may be surprised to know that your kids don't. We did a study as part of the startup that I'm a part of, share this, of 20-somethings a couple of years ago, and we found that the typical usage profile of someone that was in college was as follows. They had their instant messaging box, their Facebook page, and many of those people gave their email passwords to their parents so somebody would check their email for them. So clearly there's a difference in behavior. Younger people are using these social networking tools and like the immediacy of instant messaging in an interesting way. And so I think one of the lessons here is to not be so concerned about email as a primary fundamental IT structure. Email is a commodity service, and it's not central to supporting the creativity, interdisciplinary enhancement that we're talking about here. Now, sticking with Facebook for a moment longer, for me, when I'm on a committee, one of the four dreaded words that I don't want a chairman to tell me is, we have a wiki. Wiki usage is sporadic and hit and miss, and it's interesting that it is so hit and miss when groups on things like Facebook and LinkedIn are well populated and well used, even though the technology is only subtly different. But it seems to me the key difference is that Facebook offers an identity-rooted public-private persona to individuals, and that groups emerge organically from the individual interactions, whereas wikis are centralized affairs that are sort of dictated from the center, and people participate in them in kind of a command and control sort of way. And so we have sort of the difference between an emergent capitalist network and kind of a socialist enterprise. And we find that wikis in some ways exhibit kind of a tragedy of the commons, that because they belong to everyone, few take responsibility for their care and feeding. So it seems, I think one of the lessons that might be drawn from this is that if we want to think about future IT, that it's the Facebook model where individuals have their persona and are recognized, that is the fundamental model going forward, and that wiki usage should be bent towards that. Now, as we move forward with more collaborative systems, there's the possibility of more active collaboration. And so here I mention in passing the DISCUS project, collaboration between the Illinois Genetic Algorithms Lab and the Automated Learning Group at NCSA. DISCUS stands for Distributed Innovation and Scalable Collaboration in Uncertain Settings. And in this project, we actively use text mining and social network analysis, as well as machine learning and genetic algorithms, to help promote a more robust collaborative system. In other words, we use these tools to provide visualization of what's being said in order to help people understand and reflect on what they're doing more carefully. One of the problems with IT is that it tends not to be a reflective medium, and by providing these visualization tools, we found that we can enhance the reflective capability and the innovation or creativity of groups in this way. Another lesson, it seems to me, is that we need to overcome the not invented here disease that seems inherent in the academic enterprise. Universities tend to be fairly secretive and fairly prideful about their curricula. They think in terms of having competitive advantage by owning systems, contents, intellectual property, curriculum, what have you. And this leads to that ownership, but it also leads to a kind of lack of influence in a world that is more open. The internet is an open world, and things like open courseware, open source software, and the ubiquitousness of commercial sharing sites such as YouTube and SlideShare make it so that there are many advantages in increased traffic and convenience and influence by adopting a more open model. So this suggests that along a number of dimensions, universities need to move in the direction of increased openness, including the use of some of the commercial systems that I mentioned. Finally, I want to talk about this apportionment of credit problem. One of the difficulties we have in universities is passing resources around in some structured and principled manner. And so we have various ways of doing that, and it ends up being a bit of a cat fight every time we change those systems. But a principled approach to thinking about this problem leads in a number of directions. One of the directions it leads in is thinking about the similar problem in computer assignment called the apportionment of credit problem. And you can think of this, if we go back to the origins of machine learning, we can think about the famous checker playing program, in which the problem of apportioning credit for a triple jump has to take into account the moves that set up the triple jump. Well, we don't want to get into the details of this, but an important problem in setting up good apportionment of credit is to think carefully about the notion of state. And so as we think about apportioning credit for teaching or research or what have you, we need to think carefully about faculty, who hired them, who invested in their startup, who provides their office, who's provided the mentoring and nurturing of that person. What kind of external reputation does that person have? And similar kinds of lists of state variables can be assembled for thinking about teaching resources. But the point for IT is to think about the ideas inherent in reinforcement learning for going beyond the kinds of formulae that distort the distribution of resources that we have. So we've talked about a number of things. We've talked about framework for change, human dimensions, and the IT landscape. We've asserted that interdisciplinary research and education is important, that human problems come first, but IT is particularly important in connecting the dots. We'll conclude by saying that universities that get it will prosper, and that those that don't may risk falling in stature to those that do.